First off, good morning. Welcome to the 39th convention here in Nashville, Tennessee. Today's date is April the 3rd, and it's a grand old opportunity. Today, I am the moderator. I'm Bill Harrison, and to my left is your panelist for today, Chris Jensen. Chris is from Albuquerque, New Mexico, started calling in 1991 and started using digital music shortly after. She calls regularly through C2 and has participated in this particular session many times. She really has a wealth of information, and she really does a great job of this. And it's always a pleasure. I think I've had the opportunity of working with Chris on this at least 3 times, and it's always a wonder to work with her. It really is. So I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Chris and let her get started. Okay? And before we actually start, I would like to do this. This session is for those callers who are interested in using digital music and wish to learn more about how to transition from vinyl records to digital music. Attendees will have a chance to ask general basic questions on the use of laptops, how to arrange music folders, how to download music, what Square Dance management software is available, and the panel will discuss equipment and processes which this can be done in edited music. So this session is provided for general information designed for the beginner user of digital music, okay? I want everybody to understand that right up front, okay? Chris.
Thank you, Bill. All right, how many of you are using digital music at this point? All right, so that shows almost a majority, but not everybody. So I started using digital music shortly after I started calling because of key issues for women callers. As you know, records are produced for mostly male voices, and I was having a hard time doing all the singers that I wanted to do, so I looked around, and somebody in California was marketing a pitch shifter device that you could actually plug into your system and then use that while the record was playing to change the pitch on the record. And it was digitizing the music and then changing the pitch and then changing it back to analog and sending it out through the speakers. And then I went to mini discs. How many of you have used mini discs? Yeah, a lot of you. And that allowed me to change the pitch on the music through the pitch shifting device, record it to mini disc, and then have that at my dance so that I didn't have to bring the pitch shifter device. I used mini disc for a number of years, and then probably 10 or more years ago, I transitioned to using a laptop. Okay, how many of you use a laptop now? All right, again, a good number of people. So what I want to talk about first is kind of questions about why you might do that. And I think that these days, when I started, it was actually a real issue. People were going, well, why? I've got my records, they work. I've been talking with a few people during this convention and talked to a record producer, and that producer is no longer producing vinyl for their new releases because he said the last time they did that, their best-selling music sold about 25 copies of the vinyl. And it's just no longer economically feasible to release on vinyl. So I think that the writing is on the wall at this point that more and more producers are not going to release on vinyl, and you will, if you want new music, you'll need to go with a digital release, either a CD or an MP3. I think most producers now are doing both. They're doing a CD and they're doing an MP3. Just a question, how far back do I need to go in terms of terminology? If I say MP3, do you know what that means? I'm getting mostly nods. And so back in the beginning, we were doing things like defining what digital music was and talking about ones and zeros and digitizing the music to represent it as ones and zeros. And I don't think we have to do that anymore. People are used to using CDs. People are used to using MP3s. And so now the question is, how do we do our square dancing using MP3s or CDs. So when I started, I would record a record onto a mini disc. Now I record a record onto the computer, and that gives me a number of advantages if I'm taking records and doing that. It allows me to clean up the music, to edit the music a little bit, and do things like that. And later on, we're going to get Bill to show us how to do that using Audacity. And so that's one thing that if you're going to go digital, you need to think about it, particularly if you have a large collection of vinyl records, which I actually did because at the time that was the only way you could get square dance music was on vinyl. Now, if you're a newer caller starting out, and if you are continuing to add new music to your collection, you can buy the music already digitized, so you don't have to go through that process. You can buy the music in either an MP3 form, and you download it directly from the record producer or from Palomino Records, or you can buy it on a CD, and when you buy it on a CD, your laptop or your computer, you can get software that will take the music from the CD and put it on your computer as an MP3 file. So that becomes much easier. So now we've transitioned into a setup of, well, now that I've got all these MP3s and all this digital music, how am I going to use that to call my dance? And that's where a lot of the interest is now. I use a laptop. This is mine. It's a It's a Macintosh computer, but I run Windows on it, and I use it to run a particular piece of software that's been written for square dance calling. And there are several applications of that sort. You can also use an MP3 player. I have an iPod Touch, but there are a lot of different MP3 players. You could use your iPhone or your smartphone. You could use just a basic MP3 player. I've also in the past used, these are new devices, the iPad or a tablet. And I'm hoping that in the future we'll see more and more people writing software for these because it's really a nice, convenient form factor. It's smaller than a laptop, but with a large enough screen that you can actually see what's going on. The disadvantage of an MP3 player is that they can be small. This one actually has a fairly readable screen. It's an iPod Touch, but many MP3 players are really small and have small controls. So when you're actually at the dance, it becomes hard to use. And that's one of the factors that you want to think about when you're using digital music is how easy is it to use at the dance. So these are the kinds of, one thing you need to think about is what device you're going to use. The other thing is what software you're going to use and how you're going to organize your music to make it easy to use. So Bill, what software do you use?
Okay, the software I use is SQMP3 Gold to play my music. That's designed by Dave Wilson. There's also SquareView that's out there as well. And also you have Winamp is the beginning one and still is going pretty strong. There are three that I know of, and I can't think of any others.
Okay, now I'll add to that. First of all, if you want to not have to invest in software at all, you can use Winamp. It's just a free MP3 digital music player that runs on Windows computers, and you can use it to set up playlists of your music. You can get plugins that will control tempo and looping on that, I believe. And so for no money at all, you can have software that will play the music. Now, the disadvantage is you have to work a little harder to keep things organized. So when you're thinking about using digital music, it's not just the music. I don't know about you. I don't have a great memory, and I actually rely on having a cue sheet or a lyric sheet in front of me for singing calls, for a lot of singing calls. So I want a way, when I'm playing music, to quickly, if I pull up the music, I'd like the cue sheet to be right there, easily visible to me, so that I can then, even if I'm not using it while I'm actually calling, I can glance at it and go, oh yeah, that's the tagline.
Do we want to give an example?
Sure. He's going to bring up SQMP3. I want to mention the other pieces of software, though, while he's doing that. So he talked about Winamp and SQView, which is free, and SQMP3, which is the Dave Wilson software. There's also Digital Music Magician, which is published by the it's distributed by Palomino, I believe now. It used to be by Supreme Audio. And there's the Cedar Square Dance system, which is published by Vic Cedar, and that's what I use personally. So as you can see,
I'm going to just give you a quick overview. This is not a sales pitch. I want you to understand. It's just an example.
All of those 4 pieces of software are listed in mine.
They are listed there, okay? What's happening here is, if you just turn it up a little bit, maybe, do we have?
Nope, nothing's playing.
No sound. Oh, interesting.
This is plugged in, and that's plugged in. Wait, is it on? No, it's on.
Yeah, it is on, yeah.
Okay.
There we go. No? Well, don't worry about it. Oh, I think I know.
All right.
All kinds of things
Let
going
me
on.
jump ahead.
Wait a minute. No, we'll be here in a minute. Here's what's happening. I can't get the music to play, but that's okay. And for the people that are going to be listening to this, up here you see the little bar moving. Okay, that's the music playing. You notice it says loop at 325 on this particular one, and I think SquareView. Those programs automatically take your patter record, your hoedown music, and in this case, 15 seconds into the song, 15 seconds from the very end of the song, it automatically loops it. So you don't have to mess with it if you don't want to. It's just an automatic thing, which is great. Bill Hyman has another program too, and that name is?
Digital Music.
Digital, right. Same kind of idea. These are just different products. And over here is the MP3s, and all these are just titles of. These basically. And so these are singing call playlist, and these are patter records, okay? And right up there at the top there, if you see BPM, okay, there it says, I believe, 121. And with the hot button, I can slow that down, okay? Notice it's 115 now, all right? Unfortunately, I can't get this to play the sound, but that's okay. But I can speed it up too. And then on a singing call, if I select a singing call, I can actually change the pitch of the singing call. Notice that before you didn't have the pitch scaling there. Did you notice that? Because you can't change the pitch of the patter record, okay? It won't allow you to do that. But with the singing call, we can now do that. And you see pitch scaling semitones. So with a hot button, I can change that with just one little button. See how it went down -1 semitone? And you'd hear the difference. It really is amazing how these players really work and the work that's gone into them. So we have devices developed for what we do in our calling business. They are available. Just wanted to show that to you, and I'll get back to.
Okay, and yes, a question over there.
Anybody has a question, I got to give them a mic because we are live here in Nashville.
Jay King from Arkansas. Why can't you change the pitch on a patter record? Is that a limitation of this software, or is it some kind of?
It's a limitation of the software.
Yeah.
They just decided, I think, that you don't need to change the pitch on the patter.
You did. Oh, thank you.
On the program that I use, you can change, if you want to, you can change the pitch on any tune. It doesn't really matter.
Let's see what happens.
Yes, Jay.
Jay Silva from New Hampshire. I believe on Square View. I have Square View. I believe on Square View on the program. I believe you can change the pitch on that program.
On the patter.
On the pad. Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
This is clearly just built into
I'm not going to get into
software.
all the details because every one of them has a little button that's a little different. I just want to give you an idea. Did you hear it go down? Speed's still the same. This is where it was originally. So the beginning of this whole session was, why did Chris go into digital? Is because she was having a problem getting music to fit her voice, and we had to do other things. In the original days when we didn't have all this technology, what did we do on the turntable? We either slowed it down or we sped the music up, and that got us in our range, but then also made it slow tempo or a fast tempo.
Right.
That's where we are here.
One of the advantages of digital music is that you can change the pitch without changing the tempo. You can change the tempo without changing the pitch. That's a tremendous advantage, I think. Another advantage of digital music is you can carry, a virtually unlimited number of tunes on your digital media. So, depending on how much memory you have in your computer, you can have thousands of digital files, digital music files. Yes.
Brad Smith, Indiana. Gotta use the mic. I use the mic. All right. Brad Smith from Indiana. All right. On the pitch and stuff, do you have to reset that every time you use this? Like, if you use this song, this dance, and you go to use it the next dance, do you have to reset the pitch every time?
It depends on the software, whether that's built in to save it in the software or not. I personally choose to change the pitch before I move my MP3s into the software that I use. I do it digitally using a music editing program, which Bill will talk about later on, to decide what pitch it works for me, do that change on the WAV file, and then change it into an MP3 file. That's how I choose to do it, so it's permanently changed. All of the programs, I believe, will save your tempo settings and will save your loop points. All of the square dance calling programs allow you to set loop points, because that's another, what did you do with records? You would hit the reset button and you could keep calling. So there's something, when you're looking at digital music files, you want to find a way of duplicating that functionality. And the music software playing programs that we use have the facility to set a loop point, and then it will loop automatically. And if you do it well, it's seamless.
Yes, and that's another process of that particular player, that there's a built-in looping process that you can fine-tune it to being just about perfect. You can't even, you get it right there. They'll never know. The other question somebody was asking was, on this particular program, the minute you stop the music and restart it, if you slow the tempo down and you change the pitch, one or the other or both, it locks it in. So if you go to use that same song a week later, it's going to be exactly where you want it. So once you do it, it's a done deal. But you can change it. So in other words, if you have songs that you need to shift and make a little higher, I do that now just because of my age.
When you're recording, you've got a closet full of vinyl. The tone, bass, and treble, where is the best setting for recording that onto an MP3?
I think that is dependent on the music that you're recording. Different music, if you were playing the music on your turntable, you might have the treble and bass set separately, set differently for different pieces of music. The advantage of doing it digitally, I would personally set it straight up, and then I would adjust it later when I'm doing the music editing on the WAV file.
Say your name.
Jay Silva from New Hampshire. I'm going to add to that. I have a Hilton 500, and as far as the volume control, the treble and the bass. What she said basically is true. You can do that. But if you're going to use your set up with the computer, you're going to have to make that change anyway, because it's going to change when it's into the computer itself anyway. It's going to sound a little different. So you're going to have to make that adjustment anyway when you're up calling.
Okay, so we're jumping all over the map here a little bit. But I want to give you an idea of the kinds of things that we need to talk about. So what I like to talk about is when you're doing digital music, you have to think about how you use that music at the dance, and then how you're going to replicate your experience with records and hopefully make it better using digital music. So, one, getting the vinyl into the computer. When I've done this panel with Buddy Weaver, he made it really clear that really the best way to do that is to rebuy your music in digital form, because you're going to get the advantage of the record producer having gone from the original tapes, hopefully, to making a digital file on a CD or as an MP3 that you can download now. And you'll get a pristine copy of that digitized for yourself. So if you're willing to spend the money to do that, that's the best way to do it. On the other hand, you may have vinyl that's out of print, or you may not wish to rebuy all of your vinyl. So then you're into recording, and we'll get into some of the nitty-gritty on that later on. But once you've got it digitized, then what device are you going to use? Do you want to bring a laptop to your dances? Do you want to have, I know somebody who really delights in carrying this in his pocket. You can just walk in, plug it in, and start to call. So it's small, it's light, it's easy, but you don't necessarily get all the flexibility that you would get on a laptop, because on a laptop you can do things like we've seen here of changing the tempo, changing the pitch on the fly if you want to, doing the looping. There is software on an iPad Touch. Yes, you have.
I have it ready.
Right.
Yes.
He's got one piece of software. I have another piece of software.
I don't know if you can see that too well, but it's called Tempo. It's free.
Mm-hmm.
It's a free app that you can download. And I can pick a song here. At the very top, this is a pinwheel type thing. So if I play the song, okay, I can slow it down or speed it up just by doing that. Just running my finger around the circle. Do you hear it's changing? It takes a couple seconds. Okay. Do you hear it? Okay. It also has a pitch shifter on here too, if you want to. It's an extra 99 cents or a buck. And I downloaded that, put it on there, and when I do my singing calls, if I need to change the pitch, it'll do that as well. Okay?
Okay.
It also has a looping process here. And if I hit that, it lights up. And it's a little double arrow. And it'll loop this particular song. Now, the only thing is, it's not going to be as good because it'll have a hiccup. And so what I did is I was smart, I think. And I just took the front of my patter records off. So I don't get the end where it just goes, and then it goes back to the introduction again. And so it gets a little quicker restart back up. But this is my backup to my computer. So I have, I don't know, about 200 songs on here. So, and then with this little app. Why do I need a backup? Because I know that this computer is going to crash one day. It's inevitable. I mean, I don't know when it's going to happen. But eventually they will. I mean, they're machines, and it's going to do it. So.
Okay, so that brings up several topics. First of all, I have software on here. We have the same devices. I use a program called Amazing Slowdowner. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about tempo, does it remember your settings? When you set the pitch and set the tempo?
On here, no.
Yes.
It does not.
Okay. So Amazing Slowdowner costs money. But you can set up playlists, and it will remember your loop points, your pitch changes, and your tempo changes. And you can do all of that. It's got a different interface. It's not the DJ interface. It's sliders and such. But it will remember it so that the next time you play the music, you can have the looping and you can have the pitch change and the tempo change. Yes, Butch?
You need to make sure you... Oh, you got him? Go ahead.
Do you both have Androids or do you have iPhones?
All right. My device is an Apple device. It's an iPod Touch. It's not an iPhone, but it runs the same software as an iPhone.
iTouch as well, but you can download this to your phone as well.
You can do this. You can do this on Android devices.
How many people
also
have music on their phone that they use just as a backup? Okay, several. Okay, so you can do the same thing, get the same app, I believe.
Yeah, with iPhone. And then there is software for Android. I'm not familiar with it, but I'm sure you can find software that does similar things under Android.
Okay. Make sure you say your name and where you're from, please.
Tim Aho, Cloquet, Minnesota. I use AnyTune Plus on my own iPhone. It changes the pitch, changes the speed. I can do just
great. So there's a lot of software available. You can find it in the iTunes Music Store or the Android Store that will do what you want to do. So that's one approach. I too, and as Brian said, I have my iPod Touch as a backup, and you need a backup. I mean, you wouldn't go to a dance. Probably when you went to dance, you probably wouldn't carry an extra Hilton, although I know some people do. But you would carry extra needles, extra fuses, things as a backup in case something happened. You'd have your with records, if one record breaks, you at least have other records. With a computer or one of these devices, if it breaks, there goes all of your music. So you need to have some mechanism for carrying on if something happens. And with computers, it's not really a question of if, it's a question of when. All right, so we've talked about getting your music into the computer, and we've talked about some software to play your music, but we're talking about what functionality you need. So with a record, you're used to being able to loop it. You can hit the reset button on the on the turntable, and the needle will jump back. It's audible, you can hear it, but it works. So when you're using a device, you want to think about, well, how can I play music longer than the recorded version? Because 3 minutes usually isn't enough for patter. I don't know about you. I go on forever. No. So there are different approaches that you can take. One is to get software that loops. And if you're running it on a PC, that's easy to do. We've talked about that software. Another approach is to use the music editing software when you're doing your recording and then you're editing the music on your computer, to use that to just make a song that is 12 minutes, 10 minutes, 8 minutes long, and use that instead, so that then you don't have to worry about looping. You just play the music until you're ready to fade out. And that is relatively easy to do using music editing software. To get it totally seamless takes practice, but you can do it, and I know a number of people who do that. The advantage of that is that you can put your music on any device, just a simple MP3 player. You could have it on your non-smartphone, and you would always have some music available that you could play for patter. So that's an approach that works and takes some upfront preparation, but then once that's done, it's done, and you can use that music forever. So that's another approach to take, and I know people who do that and like that a lot. Also, some record producers, when they produce a patter on CD, they will produce a long version for you so that you don't even have to do that work. Buy the CD and rip the 10-minute version. I know Mesa Apache does that. I'm not sure other record producers do that, but it's really useful. Makes life easier for us. You need to worry about tempo control, and we've talked about that. If you choose not to use music playing software and you are using a regular MP3 player, an approach you can take is to change the tempo in the music editing software and then have your patter music in particular, but all of your music marked with what tempo it is. So, for example, you could have the same piece of music recorded at different tempos, or you could modify it to different tempos so that you would always have a reasonable tempo for what you want to do. Or you can just choose the music based on the tempo for what you want to do. Why you would want to change tempos is dancing on carpeting, the age group of the people you're calling for, factors like that, the temperature, how crowded the floor is. So you might want something slow. So you could go through your music and pick out a particular piece of music that had the right tempo. Or if you're, again, calling on your laptop, you can just change the tempo on the fly. What else do you want to do with a record? You want easy access, and you want possibly to have your cue sheets. So that is, I think, one of the major advantages of the software that we have that people have written for laptops is the cue sheet can come right up when you bring up a singing call. And the different software has different ways of matching the cue sheet file to the music file. But it's a great convenience to have the lyrics right there. Okay, another thing that you need to think about when you're using vinyl is what are you going to do on a stage when you're just calling one tip at a convention? Do you want to bring up your laptop and set that up, or do you want to, it's very easy to just walk up, flip on a record, and start calling. So one of the things that I try to make clear when you're working with this kind of stuff is you need to know how to be prepared to walk up and as quickly as possible get set up. So what I do is beforehand, and this gets into the whole hardware connection issue, beforehand look at the amplifier that they're using and figure out what cabling you need. Because Hilton has gone through virtually all of their players use different connectors. So this is a 150, and it uses the 1/8-inch connector. Okay, I know the Hilton 201, which is what I had, uses an RCA connector. Okay, the Hilton 500s used the 1/4 inch. The 300s used the 1/4 inch. The newer 500 uses the 1/8 inch, I believe. So you need to be prepared in your kit. You need to have connectors for everything. You need to have RCA. You need to have a 1/4 inch. You need to have an 1/8 inch, because unless you know for sure what Hilton you're going to be connected to, you need to have it all. Terry has a question back there.
Terry Scherer, Palm Springs, California. And is it a difference between a mono and a stereo plug when you're looking at some of the older systems and boosting the music if you need an amp?
I can answer that.
Take it, Bill.
Yeah, I think you want to go into the computer and what have you. You want to make sure that you're stereo, but into the sets, you want to make sure that you're mono. Okay.
Right. So you need a stereo to mono.
Yes.
Plug.
Very important. I don't know if anybody's going to ask the question. I might be a little deep, but at the end of there, you have like the old systems like ring and tip, and when you do the stereo, it has 2 bands on it. Okay. I don't know if you've looked at it. Well, those 2 bands mean something. So when you stick that into a mono, you risk the chance of possibly that connector that's inside, which is very, very thin and small. It's not like a big housing of actually shorting it out. And that short goes to wherever you're at on the other end. And you don't want to do that. That's the reason.
Brian.
Oh, here, I'll go, Brian. Here.
And also for the older Hilton systems, you want to get the impedance matching transformer as well. The booster.
The booster. Yeah.
Yes, you can do that, but you can also buy an external sound card if you want to. Don't have to, okay? But you can use these as well. There's several different kinds. This happens to be a Turtle Beach, okay, and it's an external card. Now, why do I want to use this? When they develop the computers, unless you buy a specific computer for sound, and what have you, that type of a sound card is going to be special. All the rest of them are generic, and they just kind of like sound cards, and they're not always the top quality sound cards. The other thing, too, is that the more you plug in here and unplug, you risk the opportunity or chance of ruining this connector here. And on my very first one, I did, because I do a couple dances a week. And so I end up using that particular hole here quite often. And it went bad on me. So I thought, hey, I'll just take it apart and fix it. Wrong. Because it's an encasement. It's a box attached to the motherboard. And you can't get to it. So the only way you can replace it is to buy another motherboard. Well, heck, when I looked at the computer and how long I had it, the motherboard was worth more than what the computer was. So I just bought a new computer, and then I said, I'm going to get something that I can plug in here, because if I ruin this is like $20, roughly $25. I think is that right? Yeah.
So what he's got is a device that plugs into your USB port.
It goes right on my USB port. Yes,
and then you plug in your
and it gives a nice clear sound. It's wonderful. Okay. Now the newer ones have a little piggy tail on it, because I don't know if you see this design. You plug it in, and what do you see? It can break. Now the newer ones have a little piggy tail comes out, and so if you hit it, it bends, and it doesn't ruin the USB port that you're plugging into. Okay. Just thought I'd say it. Enough on that.
Right. So we're looking at software, hardware. It gets complicated, and that's one of the disadvantages of going to digital music is there's a learning curve, and there's a certain amount of complexity that we didn't have back in the days with the vinyl. But, of course, it's all a matter of what you're used to. So if you gave a kid who'd never seen vinyl before a record and said, here, this is what you're going to use to play, they would find that pretty complicated. What? You mean I have to worry about this needle and cleaning this needle and this record and it gets dirty? And so, different things. But for us, there is a learning curve of what you're going to use. So we've covered tempo control, pitch control, all of these things that you could do with manually on a turntable. And we were just talking about calling at a convention. So you want to be set up with the right hardware. You have your computer. I usually make sure it's fully charged, and so I don't need to worry about power. And make sure that I have the right connector. I go look at the amplifier before I'm going to get up and call to see what connector I need, have that ready to go. So you can come up, put your computer down, have it already booted up, by the way. There's no point in standing up here booting Windows while your tip time is ticking away. Have it booted up, ready to go, plug it in, hit the play button, and go. And I think you can do that pretty much as fast as you can put on a record. What about when you're calling with other people? Okay. Nowadays you get up and there's a whole line of laptops. And it's no longer a matter of flipping through records to find out what you can do together. You have to read somebody's computer screen to find a song that you can do together. One suggestion that I heard the other day, and that I do too, is you make a list of songs that work well with group singing. So I have a playlist of duet songs that I know I can do a duet with, and I know that most people know them. And so you pull that up, and then you can look through that. Hopefully you'll have the lyrics in big enough print that people can read them, and go from there.
Can I show you something real quick?
Absolutely.
Okay, on this player here, I only can speak about this player because it's the one I use. The Square View I have seen before. I've seen it used. I don't know all of its capabilities, but I think it's just as equal to this particular player. But, for example, over here where it says favorite, see where the arrow is. Okay, and for those who are listening to the tape, I'm showing a section on the player itself that says favorites. And this is where you can create a folder. And so if I say new, okay, then I give it a file name. And say it's a state convention. Say you're going to your state convention, and you know you have X number of tips you want to do, and you don't want to search through 1,640 songs. I don't know if you see that on the right-hand corner. That you can go in here and say, hey, state convention, say state, whatever, 12, okay? And just hit the return there. Now, notice that the two panes, left pane and the middle one, are blank. All my MP3s are on the last third pane, okay? And they're all listed. So now what I can do is I can say, well, I'm going to go to the state tomorrow. What songs do I want to do at the state? So that I don't have to get up there and search through my music. So then I can go over here and we call drop and drag. Everybody understands drop and drag. Okay. So drag and drop. Did I drop and drag? But you know what I'm talking about. Okay. I was testing you. Okay. So anyhow, it's very simple to do. And then that way I can create this folder, and when I get to the location, I can go ahead and do that. So I'm going to show you real quick. Be a little bit of silence here.
All right. He is clicking on a song and dragging it over to another window and dropping it in. And it started to play right away. It sounded like, oh no, that's music from someplace else. Yep. So he's organizing a playlist for a particular event.
Absolutely. So I put two patter records there in the patter side, and I put 2 singing calls there. When I get to here and I go to the state convention or whatever the case may be, or that particular dance, then I can go down here and find that particular folder, because it doesn't matter how many folders I have. As you can see, I'm paging down in the favorites, and I have 12 folders already that I use. Okay, and so there it is right there. ST favorite, boom, I got it. And if, like you said, if you do duets or something like that, I create a folder. It's called festival songs, is what I call it. And so these are songs that most guys do together, girls and guys. And so I can go right there. And on the left-hand side, I have pattern records, so I can choose them. I don't have to be searching a whole lot. I just want to let you know that's a nice advantage too of these players that these fellows have created. It's amazing tool.
Right. And I believe all of the software that we've mentioned, the 4 programs that are specifically created for square dance calling, all allow you to do that. So you create a different playlist for different events, and it makes it very easy to access your music. So one of the disadvantages of little MP3 players, not the iPod Touch, but other ones, is that finding your music can be a little challenging. Usually it's all in one big list, and you have to scroll through and find the music that you want. So an advantage of computers or smartphones or tablets is that there's almost always a way of organizing your music in a way that you can find it quickly. So you're at the festival and you've got that set up. The program that I use also has, you can queue up songs. So I usually pick a patter record and then I queue up the singing call that I want to use, so that as soon as I'm done with the patter, the singing call is just automatically there. So that's another feature that you could look for. But all of the applications make it really easy to organize and use a lot of music and to call from the stage with your music. So those are some of the things you can think about, and the reasons that I use digital music is for all of this ease of use. I think, when I think about going through record cases, and I know I was joking with Chris the other day, and he said he lost 45 pounds when he went to digital because he got rid of his case and now just carries, a laptop. 3 computers.
Yeah,
well,
there are some who
really
have extra
safe,
backups, and it's nothing wrong in having an extra backup, because one day it's going to happen. But think about a computer. I mean, in all logic, when you had a record case, that was your file cabinet. Agreed? And that's exactly what folders are in a computer. It's your file cabinet, and that's where so when you organize yourself, you have to organize it just like when you had your record case. And the right side was the patters, and the left side was singing calls. And then somewhere halfway in the back, you had a marker that said these were, specialty songs. And everybody, if I went through your cases, I bet you everybody would have some sort of a system. And that's what a computer does as well. So don't be afraid of it.
Right. One of the advantages is that you can have the same piece of music in different folders if you want. So particularly in these programs where they're not really putting it in different places on your hard drive, they're just giving you a pointer. So you can have the same piece of music in festival. You can have, if you have different playlists for different events, you can have the same piece of music, in all of those lists. And it's not like in a record case where one
Correct.
music, one place.
Yes.
Yes.
Walter Bro from Birmingham, Alabama. I'm just going to warn all of you about one thing, and I learned this the hard way. You need to back that thing up, and I do it two ways. One, I've got a separate hard drive that sits off the side that automatically backs it up every night, because I get in the habit, I start changing things and working on it, and I walk away from it and I forget it. And then if it goes down, you lose it. The second thing I do is I've got a large thumb drive. I think it's a 100 gig or 80 gig hard drive that will download everything that I have on there. And that's what I carry with me, because I can stick it in his computer if he's willing to let me do that. And I can call the whole thing that I have on my computer up on that thumb drive, and I can work with his computer and my material. So back it up a couple of different ways, okay?
All right. We've talked about backup at the dance, and we're now talking about backup just for general safety considerations, because you really, after you've gone to the work of getting your whole music collection digitized, and it's a lot of work, as you'll see when Bill gets into it, you don't want to lose that. So it's good practice in general, if you use a computer at all, back it up. And back it up more than one place. Does SQMP3 work from a thumb drive? Can you just plug the thumb drive in and run it?
No, what you have to do is you have to go to their website, and you can download the SQMP3 Gold, and it'll work in a shareware mode until you're able to get back and get a special number for it. SQMP3 is a cost. Bill's, is yours a cost too?
Yes.
It does have a free download. Correct. SquareView is a free download as well.
But Digital Music Musician downloads as a trial version. Yes.
You could do that as well. Yeah, so basically what I do is I have just what the young man just stated. I have everything right here.
Okay, my question was some software won't run, it needs to be installed, and you can't run it off a thumb drive just separately.
Correct.
You have to install it on the host computer.
Yes.
Okay, SquareView,
right.
You can run it off a thumb drive. Okay, CSDS, he has a special version. You can set it up so that you can run it off a thumb drive. So with that...
And CSDS is...
Vic Cedar's Cedar Square Dance system. So with that, you really can have a complete setup on a thumb drive. If your computer goes down, the odds are somebody in the hall is going to have a laptop. And as Walter said, you just plug it in and find the folder on the thumb drive and start the application and start calling. So that's another safety thing, and I would strongly recommend doing that. So I think it's about time to get to digitizing your music and what the kinds of things that you can do with a digital file. Just as one of the advantages of going through this process is, as we've talked about, you can change the pitch and change the tempo in the software on the fly, or you can do it using the program. You can also, one of the things that we didn't mention is if you're into using alternative, meaning music from non-square dance sources, music at your dances, that is all digital for the most part. So you need to get used to using that. And you can also use these digital music editing programs to adjust that. Often you need to adjust the tempo. You might need to cut out places where the music changes. And that gives you a lot of control over that. You can use digital music editing programs to clean up the sound from your vinyl. If you've got old records, one of the disadvantages of vinyl is that it gets old and scratchy, and you can do a certain amount of cleanup work. It's not perfect, but you can do it.
No, you get pretty close. Okay. What I have here, I'm going to run through pretty quickly. How many people in here have transferred music from vinyl to quite a few? So you guys are pretty savvy about this. Okay? Okay? All right. But again, this is for those who are new as well. So just kind of hang back, and this can get as deep as you want to get it. All right? You can do all kinds of things. This is just a basic idea of how to get going. All right? Okay? Play band. Okay? I'm not going to go through everything. I'm just going to kind of point to you. For the people that are listening on the tape, I'm showing a picture of what a wave file looks like. And this is from a vinyl record. I don't know if you can see at the very beginning, but you see this information here. Okay? This is excellent information here, and this is excellent information here. Okay? The reason you can't see it here in the middle of the wave file, because that's your music as well. But it's there.
All right, what he was pointing to was the beginning and ending of the track, where before the music started to play, when you put the needle down, you get that few seconds of while you're playing.
Exactly. So that's what we're focusing on here. And retrieving your vinyl, in my case, is just wonderful, because I have songs that you can't even buy anymore, and I'm able to retrieve them. I have a story I could tell, but we don't have enough time. I'll make it quick. Okay, I had, and this is how I started out many years ago in my session. I had a new puppy dog got in my office. I had a stack of 100 records. The dog liked it. So he's a boy dog, so he lifted and he went. Okay, I had 100 records that were really, I couldn't use, just could not use. When I got into digital, I was able to retrieve 80 of them. Okay? All right? But I only could play them one time through. You can't clean that stuff off. It's just like an oil slick. Anyhow. Okay? But, yeah. Yeah. Okay? So once you get the WAV file in, you want to definitely make sure that you save the WAV file. Okay, that's most important. I have all my WAV files, and I have them stored on an external drive. I keep them. Because once you rip it to an MP3, if I go out and play it at a dance, I may not like the job I did. But if I have the WAV file, I have everything that went with that song. Everything. I have. Okay? So I can go back and redo that, and I don't have to re-record it. It's already done. Okay?
And I'd like to say I agree with that. And one of the reasons is that the technology is always improving on digital music. I mean, it gets better and better. So there may come a point where we'll do a beautiful restoration job with one button push.
Yeah, wouldn't that be wonderful? And kind of all this is a learning curve if you've never done it before, but it's called practice, and you'll really enjoy this. So here's just naming it, and I happen to use Cool Edit. Is what I do. I've had it since it was the $75 product back in 1942, and then it became I think Acrobat bought it and became Adobe. Adobe bought it. Yeah, that's what it was. And then it just became this big, musical editing like a studio. So it's now like $300-400 to get it. Okay. So at any rate, that's what I use. And we have papers here, by the way, on Audacity as well. So I've done a paper on Audacity so that you can actually do this same process that we're doing right here. Okay?
All right. And the advantage of Audacity is that it is free. And it's available for any platform. So whether you use Windows, Mac, or even Linux.
And I would suggest highly not to use your turntable Hiltons to do your recording. Definitely get a Ion turntable. They're very reasonable. You can get them all kind of sizes. As a matter of fact, there's a little one that I think has a little speaker to it. Is that right? Butch, I think that's okay. Cool. And and you can actually carry that and play records on it while you're in your room or whatever the case may be. It's a really nice little device. And they're $100, okay? So, and that's USB right into it. It comes with Audacity. All the program comes with it, and it's a great turntable. I have a hi-fi turntable at home that I do my music off of. And let me tell you, I started with the Hilton, and I went to the hi-fi. Man, what a difference. I mean, just huge.
Yes,
okay?
That was my experience also. Same.
Okay, and this here, I name, this is just my file. Everybody has their own system, okay? This is a suggestion. When I save my WAV file, I mark it as ORG, original, okay? And I keep the original, okay? And then here's the WAV file again. Now, the beginning part of this, the music sample, I'm going to call that a leader, okay? The lead in. And then, of course, sometimes you're going to see that you may not be able to get a good sample off the front, but you can use the backside as well, okay? Because it may give you a good sample, okay? And that's what that's going to look like when we stretch it out, okay? That the whole thing, and that's the beginning. These beginning big high clicks and all is the needle hitting the record. It's the and the rest of it's that little noise. And you try to get not this. You don't want to take that. You want to take this section here, and you want to get about 2, 3, close to 3 seconds worth of a sample, okay? Alrighty? And like I said, I'm going to go through this pretty quick. And in this particular program, we have these buttons up at top here. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to highlight this section because that's the sample I want. If you take and you get a sample here, you're going to gut this music because it's really taken a big chunk out of there. And you have to be very careful. It does affect that music that you're wanting to actually save and clean up. Okay? On most of the programs, they now come with even Audacity with a click pop removal. That means that when I first started out, we didn't have that. I had to go through the whole WAV file and find those clicks and manually take them out. Pain. It took a lot of time. But now you have a device that automatically take out the clicks and pops, and you want to do that right off the bat. So any little clicks, things you have. Now, you must be careful with your music. I cannot remember the name of the tune. Was there something called Patter Record Rhythm Sticks or something? Okay. Don't do the click and pop on that one. Because the whole thing was tickety, tick, 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 tick. And all of a sudden, you play it back and there's no rhythm sticks anymore. Because it doesn't realize that that's not a click pop. Some of them are just that close. But for the most part, you don't have that problem. Okay. So here I did the click and pop part. And I'm saving it. It's actually showing you an example of what it's doing. Okay? Do you remember what that looked like before? That's what it looks like now. That's just a click and pop removal. So that particular leader was all fuzzy. And now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10. And then that's where the sample was taken from here to there. Correct? And you can see here's the needle dropping. And here's where the rest of that sample happened to be. So now, when I go in there and take a sample, I'm taking a nice, clear cut, so I don't gut the music. Because if you gut the music, it sounds hollow. You'll hear it when you play it back. Okay.
Okay, and I want to emphasize that all of this stuff is undoable. So if you do something and you don't like it, undo it and try a different setting or try a different sample.
Yeah, the undo button is really nice. So, in other words, don't be afraid to do this, okay? Because you can use the undo. It'll take away what you just did, and you're starting right back from that particular step, okay? And this one here, this is the complete fix and pop removal, all right? So we're comparing now so that you could see what it was originally and what it is now. Now, noise reduction. That's what we're trying to take out. So we're taking that leader, and we're getting that noise, and we're taking a sample. This noise is the hiss and the pop of the needle. That's what it is, going across the groove. Only one groove, but it makes a lot of noise. All right? That information is all through that WAV file. You just can't see it because of the music wave is so big. This is what the graph looks like. You have the yellow curvature and a green curvature, and that's exactly what that sample looks like. You can vary how much of that you want to take out in this particular program, and also on Audacity, it's a different look by moving this slider bar. You see what I'm saying? You see the red, the yellow and the green goes with that up there. Over here you say get profile selection. Same thing in Audacity, just looks different. Same process, no different. This is Cool Edit, Audacity, run together pretty similar. Okay? Once you get that profile, you want to make sure that you don't get too much of that so that you end up distorting your sample so that it's going to distort the music sound. I already showed you below the slider bar. Sometimes you may have to adjust that. A lot of times you don't have to, depending on how old the record is and how much you've used it and how much worn out is apparent. Okay? And we talked about the distortion effect manifests themselves as a hollow or underwater kind of sound. It's you'll know it when you hear it. If you've heard it before, you know what I'm talking about. Okay? So then, once you select the sample, you got what you want, you highlight the entire waveform. And what that's going to do is it's going to start at the beginning, and it's going to go all the way through. Now, notice again, we got that big pop there, right? But look how that line looks there between that, when the needle was set down, and to there. Because remember, we took the clicks and pops out. So they're totally out of there. Now we're dealing with noise that's in the center of this wave file that you can't visually see. Once that's done, you're clean. Do you see that line now? See where we are here? Now, in Audacity, you're not going to see this much information. And that's why I like the Cool Edit. I don't think you're going to be able to see. I can't remember if you can see this or not. You can? Good. All righty. So you can see this in Audacity. Before it was all squiggly. Now it's clean. So my next process was, basically with this, is to say, well, I need to get rid of that front part where it's still got some noise there. I came up with a method that I like to have 2 seconds of silence on the front of the wave file, 2 seconds at the end of the wave file. Now, you may ask me why I did that. Ask me. Thank you. One reason is when I was using the mini disc, back when they were very popular, Sony had some type of a delay that within 2-3 seconds, it would start a new track. So if I ever had to transfer this music back or decided I cleaned it up and I wanted to, because when you did the mini disc and you copied your music to it, all this noise was on the mini disc. We didn't clean it up. We just copied it there. So that noise and the pops and the hisses and all were there. So I decided, well, if I want to copy this back and use my mini disc as a backup, well, I've got to come up with a way of doing that where I wouldn't have Sony automatically recognize that I've got 50 songs and I only have 20. So by doing that, it allowed me enough space to do that so it recognized that's one full track, and then we can go on to the next one. But then I realized, wow, if I hit a button to start that music and that line starts right off and I turn to look at the audience, I have to start singing the words, circle left, sides, face, grand, square. It did not give me time to turn from what I was doing with my device and look at the people and say, hey, let's get started. So the 2-second delay actually became a godsend for me to say, hey, I play my music. The minute I hit it, I have 2 seconds to turn around and look at the audience, and the song begins. So it really was a good thing to do. That's what I happen to do. I do, that on all of my songs that I copy in. How are we doing on time? 10 o'clock. Okay. Yep.
I'm going to see if I can play. I did a really old record that I then cleaned up, and so I'm going to do a before and after. That might be interesting to hear.
Go right ahead.
Do.
So we're going to be doing a before and an after of a song that was recorded in its original style, all the noise.
No, I'm not getting the sound out.
You're not getting the sound out?
I'm getting it out of here, but not there. Keep talking.
Okay, so, yes. Wait a minute.
Jerry Wilson from Virginia. What's the purpose of the 2 seconds after that you added?
Oh, because if I had 2 on the front and 2 on the after, if I transferred that back to a mini disc, then it would recognize that as being one track. Okay, because I don't remember, Sony, I have to go back and look it up. I think it was pretty close to 3 seconds or something like that. If I didn't have that leader on the front, that 2 seconds, and I started right off with the music, okay, it would go right in, and it could end up making that one song 2 tracks. Okay, and you didn't want that.
Jay Silva from New Hampshire. Don't you have a something on that program that you can check to say one file in each track or one track in a file? Because on SquareView, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. On Audio Cleaner Lab that I use to do this entire process, on there is a place that I can check that says one file on a track, or each track in one file instead of, then I get a bunch of files. You know?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think you're misunderstanding what the reason came about. This is one, that's all it is. It recognizes as one. It was in case I decided to transfer that back to a mini disc. That's why I put the 2 seconds on the front and back. So the mini disc would recognize that it was not. That was. Yes, that's what it is. That's what it's all about. But anyhow, I never did do that. Okay. But the 2 seconds became a godsend in all honesty, because now I can look at the audience. So that's cool. Okay. Are you about ready?
Yeah, I think I can play this.
Great.
So you can hear, I left the noise in at the beginning. Okay, noise.
Yeah, you hear that noise?
So it's kind of a old, scratchy sounding record.
Okay, start it over again so we can catch it for the tape. For those who are listening to the tape, this is a scratch.
Whoa.
Sorry.
Don't do that. It's recording. It should be recording.
Oh, it's recording.
All right. So then we ran it through a cleaning thing.
Yeah. Okay.
So you heard the needle go down, but now it's silent. And now I think it sounds better. So that you could hear where that starts. I would take it out for my own use, of course. But
okay, wait, what was the question again?
Why didn't I take the needle noise out?
Oh,
it gave you a reference point where you could hear where the actual where I started recording. Yes.
Oh, Bruce, this is on tape.
Bruce Simpers from Maryland. I actually take, and on the CDs where the music starts, I actually take a leader from a record to put on, and the needle going down gives me that reference of knowing when the music's going to start. I make it uniform for all files.
So you guys have a noise on the beginning of your digital music that allows you to know. That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
That is. Do you just?
I don't do that.
You don't do
no.
That. That's
in
interesting.
fact, I don't even have the 2 seconds. I just put it down and know that it's going to start right away.
You need to start doing the 2 seconds.
And just because most singing calls have a leader anyway.
Yes.
Yes. Butch.
Tom Miller recorded a song a while back called I'm Going to Change Everything. And at the very start of that, you hear this tone. It goes beep. And that's one of the only records I ever heard that had that beep, and then it goes into the music. And I know people now that have gone and done this, and they have actually put that little beep tone 2 seconds before instead of the needle going down, but they do hear that little tiny beep, and it tells them that they got 2 seconds to start the music.
Okay. That's interesting. Now, we do have, we do have songs that are quick lead-ins. We're all probably run across a couple of those.
So Brian Clark from Vancouver. I guess I'm having a hard time understanding why you would do this, other than the fact that it cleans up your music. Just from the fact that for years and years and years as callers, we would take a needle and stick it on the record, and that sound and that noise would come through. As far as taking 500 records and recording them all, and then having to do this to every single one of them is rather time consuming and painful.
I can answer that actually if you want me to. I don't know. I really, in my craft, when I used a record player and that needle, I don't know about the rest of you, how you worked your sound, but I doubt very seriously you picked that needle up and you plopped that sucker down and heard that when you were calling a dance. I know what I did is I tried to learn that I could put that thing down, and you didn't know I was putting it down. You didn't know I had set that music back other than if I might have a hiccup, okay? And I use that same logic in digital music. I don't want that noise there, personally. I mean, I don't know if I answered your question, but I think, if you go back and think how you reset a record, do you do it? Oh.
I think another reason for doing it is that as we move along and digital music becomes much more prevalent, we, maybe not my generation, but a younger generation is used to clean sounding music. They're not used to the scratchy vinyl, and I think that would be a little weird to be playing music off a computer that sounded like vinyl.
Here's the bottom line. I think it matters to us more than it does the dancers, okay? And I think that's what Brian was really trying to hit on. They're used to it. It didn't matter that they're out there chattering anyhow. They probably don't hear. But for us as, what we do, it probably bothers us most.
Well, I never had that issue because I went into digital so quickly that all of my records were really very clean, except for records that I bought from other callers. But any new records that I had, I recorded them the first time they were played. They were being recorded. So they were clean, and I didn't have to go through this process.
Ron Wolcock, Washington State. Have to think about it, and in the future, you're probably going to run into it more. And the equipment that you're going to use may or may not come from Hilton. Just as you do for your record player, you're not using a Hilton to do the record player. Okay. The new equipment that is coming out is much more sensitive than the Hilton equipment that we have on the thing. And you're going to see people that are out there using equipment that is not the Hilton equipment. You're not going to be using the yaks, you're going to see people not using the yaks. And when you get into the upper area of music, that's where your digital cleanup is going to make the difference.
Very good.
Okay, a couple of just add-on things. In the past, we've had questions about using a Mac for calling rather than using a PC. I use a Mac, but I use Windows software on it. But a gentleman, a caller in Germany, has recently written some software that does some of the functionality of the music calling programs that operate under Windows. It's available on the Mac. I've tried it. It's not polished, but it works. So if you're using a Mac and you want to have native software on it that will allow you to create playlists, change the tempo, set loop points, and such, you can get this software. It's free. I know somebody else who is using an iPad and an iPod Touch, and they use the iPod Touch to play the music, and they use an iPad or a tablet, any tablet, to have their printed material, so any notes, lyrics, choreography, and such they have on the iPad. So it gives you kind of the best of both worlds if you want that.
Carter Ackerman, Pennsylvania. There's an MP4 format out that I don't understand. Could you tell me about that?
I believe that what you may be talking about is the format that comes off of iTunes, which is it's an Apple AAC encoded music, and It's done to provide some copy protection on it. And okay.
I'm sorry, Jay King from Arkansas. Are we breaking any music copyright laws by manipulating this like we're doing?
Gray area, I think.
Bill Hyman, would you like to speak on that?
Yeah.
'Cause, I mean,
Bill Hyman, and just for clarity, for those of you who don't know, I'm the former owner of Hanhurst Tape and Music Service. I, along with Tom, the two of us hold records for getting licenses and being familiar with the laws. If you own the single user license for that music, you can turn it inside out, do whatever you want, as long as it's for your personal use. There are no issues there. You can have 30 different varieties of it. You know, key change, no key change, with harmony, with your friend's harmony, as long as it's yours on your machine for your personal use. There are no legal
what
issues.
about if you're using it in a public performance space?
No issues?
No issues.
No
All
issues,
right.
because that is not a mechanical license issue. That's the performance license. That's why we all have ASCAP BMI. If I can just give a sort of condensed answer to a number of questions that have been asked, and I've tried to bite my tongue before. DMM, and I think most of the other programs are DMM, Digital Music Magician, which I created, by the way, saves all settings. Pitch and tempo are adjusted individually. Any setting that you make on a song is remembered by song until you choose to change it. Or said differently, that which you close it at is the way it's going to default open the next time, and you're free to change that at any point in time. The answering the Mac question, DMM works wonderfully in the Windows mode on Mac. I'm not aware of ever having a problem with that. DMM was tested inside Microsoft for Windows 7. It works perfectly on Windows 7. I can also tell you that it's being tested as we speak on what's referred to in-house as Windows Next. It's actually Windows 8. And so far, there aren't any problems. I'm not promising you there will be none, but it does work perfectly in that environment. And if you choose to download one, you can download it free. I'll be at the convention, and on your computer, I'll help you play with it. Thank you.
Okay. Wait a minute now. Where do we get here on the?
I do have. This is Walter Bro again from Birmingham. I use. I have a hard time with the cue sheets. Okay, and I convert all the cue sheets over to a spreadsheet where I can use an abbreviated call list and things like that. And none of these programs will accept the spreadsheet format. It's all. You have to bring the Word format in. Is there any way to change that where you can get the spreadsheet format in? Save it as Word? Okay.
Okay, most of the programs will take Word, or doc files, or PDFs, I believe, or HTML and RTF, yes.
There is now music control programs for the Mac that are not as flexible as far as making your playlist and putting your groups in, but as far as controlling the music, pitch, tempo, retaining it, Mac has a couple of things you can buy just like you use in the iPad, just like you use in the iPhone,
right,
that work perfect.
Right. They're often DJ programs, or the program that I mentioned, Amazing Slowdowner, also runs on a Mac.
Yes. Hey, it has been a wonderful time. It is now 3:16. We're a minute over our time. What a wonderful session. I hope you enjoyed. Once again, give a nice hand to Chris.
Bill Harrison.
By the way, if you did not get a handout, there is a disc that you can get from the home office that has all the handouts on it in Word file PDF, so you could still retain and get that there. Hopefully we answered everything that you wanted to talk about, and thank you for coming very much.